What's up? My name's Danny Swade. Today I got a book review for you. Um, this was really interesting for me. The book is called The Practice by Seth Godin. And if you don't know who Seth Godin is, I'll show you. Basically, how can I show you? Oh no. I think I might have, here he is. Sorry. This guy. He's a little bald guy with yellow glasses, and he's the GOAT pretty much. You might have seen him. He's basically the father of email marketing, apparently. And he's a total marketing G. And I've seen a lot of interviews of him. I've read The Tribe by him before. And he really genuinely seems like a nice dude and a good dude. And really nothing bad to say. And as far as the book goes, I'll give you kind of a broad overview. And then as far as review goes, it's not necessarily a review like how was it good? It's like I have this process where on Kindle, I just started reading on Kindle since I've been traveling, and you can highlight things and make notes as you go. And then you just have a section of all your highlights of the book. So basically my plan here, and with these book reviews in general, is to just go through my notes and talk about them and look at what I highlighted and kind of just share the things that stuck out to me. And generally when I'm reading, if something sticks out to me or seems meaningful or important or pertinent to my life, and or whatever, I just highlight it. And so it's a cool way it helps me retain what I'm reading too. So this is just as much for me as it is for you to go back over this and kind of just review everything. So I got my Coca-Cola Zin in. I'm feeling it. And we're going to go. So overview wise, the other thing about Seth I forgot to mention is he has been blogging every day for like 10,000 days or something. So he doesn't miss a day, and he every day, new blog post. And they're a lot of times really small, just little bite-sized ideas. Sometimes they're bigger ideas, but that's another thing that he's kind of known for. Seth'sBlog.com. But so The Practice, this book is the let's see what this subtitle is here. Hold on. I think it's funny that I can't remember. Oh, The Practice, Shipping Creative Work. That's what it is. So it's basically, if you're creative, it kind of boils down to just putting out your work and how to think about putting out your work and being a creative in general. It kind of just deals with all of that. Art, being a creative, putting it out, how to think of it, what it is, what you're doing, etc. I will say that his writing style is like bullet pointed. So it's like just numbers. It's like a number and then a thought and a number and a thought instead. And they're kind of chapters, but it's really just a bunch of little thoughts all crammed together, semi-unrelated. Like it doesn't necessarily flow that much it's kind of just a bunch of different ideas. And while I think my experience is that some of them, it's almost like he is just shooting a million darts at the dartboard. There's just a million ideas, bam, 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 bam. And some of them are very wise and I think born of a lot of experience and time doing marketing and learning. And so a lot of them I think are very insightful and very relevant. Some of them I feel like are sometimes I feel like he says things that I'm like, can you just say that confidently? Like you're just saying it like it's completely true for everyone all the time. I'm not convinced it is. So it does seem like he misses a little bit, or there's no distinction between like, this is cold hard fact how the industry is, and this is how it is being an artist, and this is reality, and then like, this is kind of my opinion that may be true some of the time and accurate some of the time. So some of the things I would read, but the last thing I'll mention before I get into the notes is that I've also read in the past, freaking yeet that Zin out of there. That thing is gross to me. I'm sorry. I've been lowering my Zin intake, and so when I pop a Zin, sometimes I'm like, whoa, that thing was hitting me. Okay, anyways. So the book The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I've read that as well. Very good book. Rick Rubin is such an interesting guy. But it's basically the opposite philosophy. It's like antithetical to everything that Seth Godin says in his book. So it's this really interesting thing where I'm like, what the heck? And I think to a certain degree, it's just semantics. But I would love for them to have a conversation because I think it would be so interesting to hear those ideas clash and those ways of thinking clash. I think Rick Rubin is a little his situation is a little more maybe idealistic, and he's only working with like the best successful artists, most amazing artists. So, and I think Seth Godin like freelances, right? So I think he gets hired by businesses and companies to build communities and to do marketing and to do these things. So he's, I think, more often working with people who maybe need help to a certain degree. And then Rick Rubin is just working with people that are awesome. And then he's just kind of taking it to another level and whatever. So that may be a naive view. I'm not sure. Excuse me. Without further ado, let's get into it. So this is kind of what my notes look like, but I'll probably keep it on the main camera. But let's go. First one. We got a lot. I got a lot. I'm not going to lie. Okay, the first thing, the practice is not the means to the output. The practice is the output because the practice is all we can control. So, okay, to break that down, I think a lot of people think of like, I'll probably talk about writing music a lot because that's what I do creatively, but rather than thinking of being an artist and creating music and being a musician as playing music and making songs, I think what he's saying a lot of times is that creating a song, putting it into the world, doing the marketing, sharing it with people, that entire process, which the shipping creative work, right? The shipping is putting it into the world, right? Packaging it and shipping it out, which is an interesting way of phrasing it, which I had not come across before, but that is the practice, right? So thinking of it that way, I think is what he's getting at. And at the end of the day, like he's saying, that's all you can control. So that's in a lot of ways the gist of the book is that idea. But okay, next one. This is interesting. He's talking about your path, right? And he says, we choose to embrace a story about compliance and convenience, the search for status in a world constrained by scarcity. The industrial economy demands it. It prods us to consumption and obedience. We trust the system and the people we work for to give us what we need as long as we're willing to continue down the path they've set for us. This is about conformity. This is about like your 9 to 5. And this is why it stuck out to me because it's this interesting way to conceptualize the kind of hive and the 9 to 5 and the kind of grind where he says, we choose to embrace a story about compliance and convenience, right? So in a world where things are scarce and you need money and you need food and whatever, this giant machine of the economy and industry basically rewards and kind of, he says, prods everyone into compliance and obedience, right? So they're like, here's a path, the industrial economy and this greater apparatus, right? They're like, here's a path for you to go down. That's our path that we want you to go down for production and for us to make money, etc. And in return, we'll give you the security and the, what does he say? Give you what you need, right? So the things you need and that you're looking for, we'll give you it. You just go down our path. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think in a lot of ways, that's what's amazing about society in general. Is that you have the ability to do that if you want. I wouldn't say anything bad about that. But as a creative person and an artist, it's like basically saying, no, thanks. I'm going to kind of do my own thing here. And it's more risky. And I just love that it's conceptualized that way. And thinking about it that way, I hadn't thought of it that way before. Okay, next one. Okay, this is interesting. Art is what we call it when we're able to create something new that changes someone. That is very interesting way to conceptualize art, and I think that's maybe where he would differ from Rick Rubin. I had a note on this that says thinking of art as innovation. So to me, creating something new that changes someone is kind of like innovation in a way, right? So I tend to think of art, my default way I think of art is I think of going through life, right? You're like a machine, you're a biological machine, and you're going through reality and you're going through life, and all these processes are happening psychologically and physically, and the exhaust of experiencing reality in life is art, right? That's just, we just express ourselves based on our experience and what we're feeling and going through and whatever, and that is what art is, and that's what I think of it. So like if you make a painting in a cave and no one ever sees it, is that art? I would say yes. By this definition, though, no. But this is the way he kind of conceptualizes it for the book, which is just interesting way. Moving on. We do this work for a reason, meaning do our art. But if we triangulate the work we do and focus only on the immediate outcome, our practice will fall apart. This is also really interesting, and this is a struggle I have, right? Where it's like, and this is what Rick Rubin is saying, you got to make the art for the sake of the art. And if you're hyper focused on outcome and immediate outcome, your entire practice will fall apart, because then the art won't be that good sometimes. And it's about doing your art, I think, purely, and just making sure you get to a point where you share it, right? And making sure you share it, but being detached from the outcome is like the proper way to do it, right? And just the practice is just make the art, ship it, make the art, ship it, make the art, ship it. And it's not thinking about how is it going to do, what is the outcome, are people going to like it, is it going to resonate, etc. Those are things that, Rick Rubin would say, do not think about it. And Seth is saying that here as well. Okay, next one. Trust. He's talking about trusting yourself. Trust is not self-confidence. Trust is a commitment to the practice, a decision to lead and make change happen regardless of the bumps in the road. That's interesting. So it's like you're not trusting yourself. Trust is not self-confidence. So it's not knowing that you're going to be successful. It's a commitment to the practice. So that's an interesting way to conceptualize it. And I don't know. I'm like, is that? I don't know. Make change happen. Thinking of art as like making change and changing someone or changing things is such an interesting way to think of it. And I like this, regardless of the bumps in the road. Got to persevere through the bumps in the road, baby. Okay, next one. Ooh, this might be my favorite thing. And this isn't really necessarily related to art, but it's maybe related to like clickbait or selling merch or selling things. He says, here's an easy test for manipulation. If the people you're interacting with discover what you already know, will they be glad that they did what you asked them to do? Meaning, if you're asking them to click on a video that has a specific title, and you know that title isn't that accurate to the video, and they click it, right, then you're manipulating. And I think this is interesting, because this is an ethics discussion, right? And ethics for me is one thing is very hard, right? If you don't have like a hard religion, and it's even hard with religion, but ethics, knowing what's right or wrong, or is this right or wrong, what should you do, is very difficult. And I think thinking of this, like if you're doing a deal, you're interacting with someone, literally almost any facet of life. If that other person you're interacting with knew what you knew when you're doing a deal with them, would they still do the deal? Would they still want to do the deal, right? If not, you're manipulating them. And that's not good. And that's a really cool test. And I find that very useful when I'm interacting with people and like maybe I feel a little uneasy. Like, am I being squirrely? Is this weird? I don't know how to feel about it. That's a good test. Next one. Problems have solutions. That's what makes them problems. A problem without a solution isn't a problem. It's simply a situation. I like that too, but my note here says, maybe this is simplified, because how is one to always know if there's a solution or not, right? If you're presented with a problem, how do you know? Like, maybe you could solve it, maybe you can't, you don't know. So part of me is like, okay, interesting concept, but like in practice, how do you do that? Because I think sometimes it's obvious, but a lot of times I don't know if it's so obvious. I think a lot of times the hard problems and difficult things we go through are difficult because you're like, okay, is this worth trying to solve this or figure this out? Because maybe you can't, maybe you can, you don't know. And I think a lot of times that's an issue, but still interesting to think of that. I like it. You have a problem and just thinking, okay, a problem by definition needs to have a solution. So there is a solution. So that's just a positive way of looking at hardships. This is interesting. We commit to making people uncomfortable in the short run so we can be hospitable later. I'm going to actually double click into the book here and let's see what's contextually around this. If your no becomes a habit or a way to hide out, you may end up cutting ties with the very people you set out to serve. If your no becomes seductive, you can get comfortable there instead, never actually shipping your work, because shipping your work means that you'll need to re-enter the world with a yes. So I think, okay, hold on. If you're results focused, if the trust you had in yourself becomes a fragile cycle in need of reassurance, shipping your work to the world is fraught. And so it may be easier to stay warm in the narcissism of always saying yes or always saying no. Interesting. So I think it's like, I think he's basically talking about saying yes or no in the context of putting something out there or sharing something, and how maybe the way you do that or how often you do that, people won't like it first, but it's kind of like making a sacrifice to be able to give people what they want later. Again, not exactly sure how to apply that, but interesting. Let's go next one. Ooh, this is interesting. The feeling of being owed, whether it's true or not, is toxic. Our practice demands that we reject it. And I think it's in terms of being owed, like, oh, I made this song, you owe it to me to listen to it, or I made this thing or whatever, right? Thinking that your creative output or what you do deserves people to watch it or experience it or do it. And I totally relate to this, because as a creative person, especially when I was really going hard on social media, and I feel this to a certain degree on YouTube as well, but yeah, like people not listening to the music or not watching my videos or not liking my posts, etc. When you feel like you have you're entitled to that, really makes you bitter and feel bad and not like it. And so I think that that's a really good point, that it's toxic to feel owed, and just reject that wholesale. I like it. Let me go ahead and put this on Do Not Disturb. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Next one. There's no need to know the details of the practice before we begin. We can know the recipe, but we can't know the recipe because there isn't a recipe. Recipes are always outcome dependent. That's so interesting. So if you're not focused on the outcome, you don't care about the outcome, there's no recipe. And this is an interesting point, because I was talking to this dude yesterday that I was at lunch with, and he's talking to me about wanting to make content and looking for different revenue sources and making YouTube videos or whatnot. And mentioning this thing like, well, I don't really know exactly how I would do it, or I don't know exactly what I would do with the specifics. Basically saying I don't have a recipe. And I was telling him, dude, just dive in there. I've said this before, but there's this thing about being a human where humans, in the midst of figuring something out or trying something, are incredible at figuring things out. Once you're in something and you're trying to do something and you're in there rooting around, it's amazing what you can figure out and find and discover. But there's this, for most people, there's a tendency to like look at it from the outside before you start and want to get it figured out and then start, right? So it's like, okay, once I know exactly what I'm going to do and how it's going to work and how I'm going to approach it and all this, then I dive in. And that's how a lot of people that are maybe more anxiety prone or prone to worrying or being outcome dependent, that's what you do. And you'll just procrastinate your freaking life away. And I think I've heard it a million times from a million people that just start, bro. Just do one, dive in there, go. You'll figure it out along the way. And that is how you figure it out. Woo. I like that one. Okay. This is funny. How can any of us be certain, and yet how can anyone who cares hold back? Love that. It's like, okay, dude, if you want to do it, if you care, if it's what you want to do or what you think is important, you just got to rip it, dude. And you're not going to know if it's going to work. You're not going to know how it's going to turn out. You're not going to know the details of everything all the time. But if it matters to you, just go for it. Dive in there and send it. Go, go, go. I love this wisdom. I think this wisdom is so good to just start and just go for it, and figure it out along the way. Good one. Okay, so we got two here. If the problem can be solved, why worry? And if the problem can't be solved, then worrying will do you no good. This is a banger. Honestly, this is like a life pillar of mine. Pretty self-explanatory, but just a good thing to remember. Oh, this is crazy too. Worrying is the quest for a guarantee, which you just don't get in life a lot of times. And let go, baby. Just go for it, and just, man, being not outcome dependent is so freeing. Very hard, but very freeing. Here's another worry one. The time we spend worrying is actually time we're spending trying to control something that is out of our control. Time invested in something that is within our control is called work. Wow, I love it. That's so good. The time we spend worrying is actually time we're spending trying to control something that is out of our control. Time invested in something that's within our control is called work. That is a banger. That one got highlighted with yellow instead of blue. Woo. Love it. You get that tattooed on my forehead, baby. Okay, next. We don't ship the work because we're creative. We're creative because we ship the work. That's interesting. Again, kind of flipping this idea on its head of like the term creative. He's basically, I think in a way, he's taking the concept of art, right? Being expressive and creating art, whether it's a painting or music or a book or anything, and moving it into the context of a community of people or a society, right? Where you're creating for a society, you're creating in a society amongst people, and creating for everyone, right? Who maybe wants it, right? And rather than creating like there wasn't a song and now there is a song, it's like there wasn't food for everyone and now there is food for everyone. It's basically, in a way, I think, just the concept of creative work and art, and then you're just taking that and implanting it into the concept of a community or anything like that. But yeah, that's kind of that. We don't ship the work because we're creative because we ship the work. That's like pretty much the core of the book, I would say. Okay, the best. Oh man, okay, hold on. I got to go back a page. Hold on. I'm going to bring you with me. So this is about a specific paradox that he's talking about. And let me see if I can go back. No, whoopsies. Stand by. Okay, he's talking about this paradox. How do I go to the last page? What is the paradox that he's talking about? Okay, so it's the continuum of a hack, a professional, an amateur, and a failure. So this is interesting. So on the horizontal axis, you have no artistic vision or integrity. And then on the other side, you have honoring the muse with a point of view. So it's basically having a vision or not, or really caring about your creative vision. And then on the vertical axis, it's persistently serving your audience. And then on the bottom, it's quest for a lucky break. So if you have no artistic vision and the quest for a lucky break, you're a failure, right? If you're persistently serving your audience, but you have no artistic vision, you're a hack. If you're persistently serving your audience and honoring the muse with a point of view, which is being very creative and honoring your creativity, you're a professional. And if you're honoring the muse with a point of view, but you have the quest for a lucky break, you're an amateur. That's very interesting. So I think that's what he's talking about, the paradox. And then he says, the best way through the paradox is by working. Ship creative work on a schedule without attachment, without reassurance. So that's the idea there, and I like it. We'll go to the next one. Ooh, this is interesting. Your audience doesn't want your authentic voice. They want your consistent voice. And I just put a note that said, I think it's both. I think people, to say that your audience doesn't care about authenticity or your authentic voice, I just feel like maybe not. Next one. Is the narrative working? As you've already guessed, writer's block is simply a side effect of our narrative. It's not an actual physical or organic ailment. Simply a story we tell ourselves that leads to bad work habits and persistent fear. I think at the heart of writer's block is just outcome dependence, right? You're scared you're not going to get the outcome you want. You're scared if you do the work and you make something, it's not going to be good, right? You're dependent on it being good or cool or whatever, or liking it. So that's that. We're going to go back with the Zen. Okay, next one. There is an abundance of opportunity, a nearly infinite number of poems and other creative genius that are waiting to be contributed to the world, if only the poet cared enough, believed enough, and tried long enough. About dedication, and I like it. I'm with it. Next one. If you want to create your work, it might pay to turn off your Wi-Fi for a day, to sit with your tools and your boundaries and your process and nothing else. There's time to engage with the world after we do our work, but right now we fill the cup and we empty the cup. We sit and type, and then we type some more. Being on a social media cleanse myself, I totally agree with this. There's something about just shutting out the work and just vibing, just ripping it, writing, playing music, thinking, chilling, without the outside world constantly. Super good. I'm with it. Big yes. Befriending your bad ideas is a useful way forward. They're not your enemy. They are essential steps on the path to better. Banger. Wow. Because think of how easy it is every time you write a song, if it's not a banger, and thinking, damn it, didn't make a banger, right? In this negative mindset and being discouraged, right? And then especially if you're a creative that's constantly making songs or constantly making things, you're going to make a lot of bad stuff. And if you have a negative relationship to that process, it's going to suck, right? But imagine every time you make something bad, you're like, oh, yes, one step closer to making the good thing, right? That's going to completely change your entire journey. So I think that's a huge one. That's a banger. Befriending your bad ideas. Wow. What a concept. Okay, next. Okay, this is cool. This is about genre, and this is a very cool way of thinking about it that I had not considered. Genre is a box, a set of boundaries, something the creative person can leverage against. The limits of the genre are the place where you can do your idiosyncratic work. I don't know what idiosyncratic works, so we're gonna pause and I'm gonna look up what that means because your boy does not know what that means. Sorry, we're learning. Idiosyncratic definition. Here we go. Relating to idiosyncrasy. Okay, what is that? Oh, a mode or behavior or way of thought particular to the individual. Interesting. Okay, got it. So that's very interesting, honestly. Wow. Okay, so with that in mind, let's go again. Genre is a box, a set of boundaries, something the creative person can leverage against. The limits of the genre are the place where you can do your idiosyncratic work. To make change happen, the artist must bend one of those boundaries on one of those edges. Generic is a trap, but genre is a lever. This is an interesting concept, right? It's like, I'm going to read this next one because it's in the same vein, and then I'll talk about it. But he says, if you tell us this is a reggae record, we're going to compare you to Bob Marley. If you assert that you're painting fine art, you've got 1,000 years of artists to stand next to. It's so much easier to say, it's just me. It's simply what I feel like creating, because then we'll ignore you and then you're off the hook, right? So not having a genre or doing anything in a box as a way of hiding. This is interesting. I haven't thought of this, where he's saying it's like a lever, right? If you are in a genre and then you go to the edge of the genre and bend it, right? And do something a little different out of the genre, right? But it's within a genre. This is a mechanism or a lever to make you unique. And I really never thought of that concept for, and I love it. I think it's so cool. And man, Seth, I will say he throughout the book, he really does kind of call you out and point out ways that you can hide as an artist or a creative, and kind of is like, hey, I see you behind that rock, dude. And a lot of them are ways you hide that you don't necessarily notice. And then he says it like this genre thing. I hadn't thought of that. And when people ask me what I make, I say pop music. So that's my genre, but I hadn't really considered it like this, like putting myself next to pop artists or putting myself in a genre as a strategy to like have a boundary to bend. Like I've never thought of that. I think that's a cool idea. Okay. Next, don't talk about your dreams with people who want to protect you from heartache. Again, not really sure about that one. Not sure about it. I don't know. I think some people, yes, some people no. Depends on who. I guess it's hard. I don't know about that one. We're gonna move on. This is a cool one. It turns out it's not training hours or DNA that changes outcomes. It's our belief in possibility and the support of the culture around us. This is so interesting because I've talked about this before, where it's like you in the music industry, right? You have incredible talent and people that are born into music with musician parents and they're incredibly talented and whatever, and they don't even scratch the surface level of success, even if they're working hard, as someone who just gets on a mic for the first time and is like ripping it and vibing and not thinking about their limitations and has a squad around them and the right people around them, and they just go nuclear, and it's like, what the heck? This is, I feel like what he's talking about here is this. It's our belief in possibility and the support of the culture around us that changes outcomes. That's very interesting. I love it. Good. Okay. Where does good taste come from? Good taste is the ability to know what your audience or clients are going to want before they do. Good taste comes from domain knowledge combined with the guts and experience to know where combined with the guts and experience to know where to veer from what's expected. That's a cool conceptualization of taste, right? I never tried to define taste or like, what does that mean? The ability to know what your audience or clients are going to want before they do. That is crazy, right? So interesting. Good taste comes from domain knowledge. No, it may be like knowing your genre, right? And combined with the guts and experience to know where to veer from what's expected. That seems so hard to have good taste, because I think of good taste as like, oh, people just, you have good taste or you don't. But this really makes it seem like it's courage, it's experience, it's domain knowledge, being ear to the streets, right? All those things combined, which you can develop that. So that's interesting. Cool to think of it like that. Because if you're like, I don't know if I have good taste. Well, okay. Learn your domain and what the space you're in very well. Be brave and continue to stack experience, and your taste will develop. Let's go. Okay, next thing. Ooh, this is cool. It's constraints that enable us to create art. Art solves problems in a novel way, and problems always have constraints, right? So again, it's like your relationship to constraints. It's so easy to be like, well, I can't do this because of that, and I can't do this because of that, and I can't do this because of that. If you think of it like, okay, the fact that there's a problem in constraints makes it so I can even do this in the first place. That's what the point of this is, to solve problems in a novel way, whether that's entertainment or whatever it may be. Interesting way to think of it. Again, flipping the script to a positive way. Constraints in your dance with them are part of the practice. I love to think of it that way. It just really changes it. I think it's so easy to be like, well, complaining about things, about your constraints, instead of viewing them as the rungs on the ladder, right? Like, that's really cool. Okay, here we go. This is cool. Bill Putnam changed recorded pop music by inventing reverb in 1947. He put a microphone in a speaker in a bathroom and turned on the song Peg Oh My Heart. He put a microphone in a speaker in a bathroom and turned the song Peg Oh My Heart into a #1 hit. By daring to create artificial reverb, he opened the door for so much of what we hear coming from music studios today. That's cool, man. It's like everyone uses reverb on everything, and it's just completely, what do you say, normalized now. It's like we don't even think of it that much. And the idea that when this guy did it in 1947, it was crazy. He's like, what are you doing? These dude's in the bathroom with a mic, recording a speaker with a microphone in the bathroom. Like, what a weird freaking thing. And then look at it, just injected into everything. Very cool. I like how he says, by daring to create artificial reverb. Come on, baby. My note here is, remember this if you feel that you are doing something weird or crazy, as a note to myself, where you're like, this is weird what I'm doing, or like, this is crazy, or like, whatever. That's how we move forward, baby. That's how we do new things. Run it up. Okay, next. We're getting to the end here. Here we go. Elements of the practice creative that are a choice. What? This is weird. Hold on, sorry. Okay, sorry. It's a list here, and it doesn't come through in the notes very well. Here we go. Sorry, back. Okay, here we go. These are the elements of the practice, okay? Creative is a choice. Avoid certainty. Pick yourself. Results are a byproduct. Postpone gratification. Seek joy. Understand genre. Embrace generosity. Ship the work. Learn from what you ship. Avoid reassurance. Dance with fear. Be paranoid about mediocrity. Learn new skills. Create change. See the world as it is. Get better clients. Be the boss of the process. Trust yourself and repeat. Those are the elements of the practice, apparently. Next one. Oh, this is cool. Ideas come in spurts until you get frightened. So Willie Nelson wrote 3 of his biggest hits in 1 week. Just went brrr. This is interesting. And as a creative person, I find this to be true. Like when I was last time I was here in Bangkok, I made 1 song, which was a banger, probably one of my best songs. But when I was in Bali, I made like 9 songs, and I was just pumping out music and songs like crazy. And it's weird. I don't know why it's like that or what happens. I'm still trying to figure it out, but that's true. And it's interesting to think of creativity like sometimes when you hit a wave, you just ride that wave, baby, because you don't know when you're going to get the next one. But still do the practice and still ship the work no matter what, is what Seth would say. Okay. This is really good. This was Seth had an animation made on the webpage for the book, and this is the quote he chose to read for it. So it is apparently important to him. Anger only gets you so far, and then it destroys you. Jealousy might get you started, but it will fade. Greed seems like a good idea until you discover that Greed seems like a good idea until you discover that it eliminates all of your joy. The path forward is about curiosity, generosity, and connection. These are the 3 foundations of art. Curiosity, got that one down. Generosity, need to work on it. Connection, need to work on it. Working on it. But yeah, that's really interesting. Greed seems like a good idea until you discover that it eliminates all of your joy. Last one here. The magic I need to learn how to read so bad. The magic is that there is no magic. Start where you are. Don't stop. This is what I'm saying again. Just freaking go, baby. Dive in. Start. Just get in there and start twisting things. Such good wisdom. So those are all my notes. And it's so helpful for me to go back through and read through those and think about them. I hope some of those were interesting for you. There's definitely a lot more in the book, so that doesn't exhaust the wisdom of the book. If you want to read it, there's a link in the description. There will also be a link to my last book review, which was Mind Shift by Erwin McManus, which was also a banger and very interesting. So I'd recommend checking that out. Right now I'm reading This Is Your Brain on Music. It's all about music and music in the brain and how your brain interprets music, why we hear music, how it all works, the physics, everything. Super interesting. So that will be the next book review for you to look forward to. Before I go, my name is Danny Swade. I want to tell you about the 4 things I do, not 8, 4. One is this YouTube channel. So like and subscribe. It's called Wonderneath, and I do all kinds of stuff. I do vlogs. I do these book reviews. I do live streams every week on Sundays where I walk through my weekly updates on my blog. and a bunch of other stuff. I do videos based on my blog, all kinds of things, following my curiosity, sharing my life and my journey, and etc. I kind of view this channel as like my window out into the world. So this is where I show up to the world on camera. And then the other thing is my blog, which there will also be a link in the description. It's substack.com/wonderneed. Or no, DannySwade.substack.com. Sorry. And it's kind of like the seed of the YouTube channel in my life in general. And I do weekly updates on there, and I share photo dumps and what I'm doing and a bunch of other stuff. Since I'm not on social media, that's kind of my way I connect with people and people can stay up to date with me. So if you want to stay up to date with me, that's your spot to do it. There'll be a link. And then I also am a musician and an artist, and I'm making music, and I got some bangers, and I got so much cool stuff planned. So check me out on Spotify and literally anywhere, honestly, Apple Music, YouTube, everything. It's Danny Swade. And then the last thing is my store, which is on DannySwade.com, where I sell these necklaces. I have earrings, hats, hoodies, all kinds of stuff. And I'm constantly making new products and updating stuff. So you can check that out if you want to grab some merch or some, swag. And that's what it is. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. And peace.